so let's get started here. Good evening and welcome to this Zoom webinar forum with the candidates for the 2023 to 2026 Bremerton School Board term. The position is number 1. This is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Kitsap County. My name is Riley Abel, and I will be the moderator for tonight's event. The League of Women Voters is proud to be a nonpartisan organization and does not support or oppose candidates or political parties. Our league envisions a democracy where every person has the desire, the right, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate in voting. Before we begin, the league would like to acknowledge that our homes and gathering places in present-day Kitsap County are within the ancestral territories of the Suquamish and S'Klallam people, who have lived in harmony with the lands and waterways along Washington's Central Salish Sea for thousands of years. Here, the Suquamish and S'Klallam live and protect the land and waters of their ancestors for future generations, as promised by the Point Elliott Treaty of 1855 and the Point No Point Treaty of 1855. The questions for today's forum were sourced from the community through the League of Women Voters website, from members, and from a local high school civics class. The candidates will be asked questions that cover a range of topics and issues pertinent to the Bremerton School District. The candidates participating in this evening's forum are Lance Byrd and incumbent Dr. Karen J Bolton. Thank you both for offering your skills and talents in service to our students and their families. You deserve our respect and each other's. So please remember that this is a forum and not a debate. We ask you to respond specifically to the provided questions and remain civil to each other. So the candidates have been informed of the format tonight, but I'd like to repeat it for the viewers. For every question, each candidate will be given 60 seconds to respond. We will start in the order their name appears on the ballot, and we'll then rotate who answers each question between each question. Please be conscious of the viewers and do not go over the 60 seconds. If you run out of time, you may finish your sentence, but don't push it too far past that. If you finish responding to a question before the 60 seconds are up, you are welcome to use your remaining time to refer to a previous question or to clarify a statement. At the end of the forum, each candidate will have 90 seconds to provide a closing statement. Our timekeeper, Candy Rankin, will keep everybody honest using an electronic clock, which the candidates will be able to use on their screens. If you would like a question repeated at any point, please do not hesitate to ask, even if it's the other person has already answered it, or if I just said the question, do not hesitate to ask for the question to be repeated. All right, let's get started. So remember, each candidate has 60 seconds to respond. We'll start with Dr. Karen Bolton because her name appears first on the ballot. Dr. Bolton, why did you decide to run for the Bremerton School Board, and what do you hope to accomplish if you are elected?
Well, I want to thank the League for having this forum. It's really exciting, and I'm really excited to hear the questions from the students. So that's what I always do here. I have always been someone who wanted to serve not only my country, but my community. As a former high school dropout, I bring a unique set of perspectives and skills. And as a woman of color in this community, sometimes I'm not fully represented in a lot of spaces. But more importantly, I'm here to serve my students, the students within Bremerton. These kids are the ones who are going to be the future of our country. So I like to be in those discussions, hear from the students, hear from the parents, hear from the community members. But this job is kind of important for me because it's important to our country.
Thank you, Dr. Bolton. Lance, the same question.
Well, I too would like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this, and for Dr. Bolton for joining us here as well. What motivated me was parental rights and my concern that they're eroding. That's probably, and transparency. Myself and a lot of others are concerned about what's going on in our schools, and I felt a need to serve my community, and that's, I guess, what motivated me. So that's what I got.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. We'll move on to the next question. And so, as I said before, we're going to be rotating who answers first. So Mr. Byrd, you will start with this question. While enrollment seems to have stabilized, Bremerton has experienced a loss of students in the past few years. What should the district do to keep families attending Bremerton schools or to bring students back? And what role can you, as a school board member, play in this effort?
Okay. Doing a bit of research on this, we've got about 800 to 1,000 students that are attending both private or going somewhere else or being homeschooled. And I think a pertinent question there is why. In my circles, or at least in my church and families I've talked to, they're concerned. The issue is trust. They don't know what their kids are being exposed to. They don't feel like they're going to be told if there are issues with their kids. And I think to address this, we really have to work to, again, restore trust. In other words, be open, be transparent, and make sure that our policies, even though we have some state issues and laws that we have to follow there, sometimes you need to work around them or work with them to, again, make things public and make things transparent.
Thank you. Dr. Bolton, the same question.
Well, it's not lost on myself or my fellow board members and our new our new superintendent that enrollment has been declining over the years. But keep in mind, when I came into the board, 2019, it was a very exciting time for me. However, we came right into COVID, and then we had to mitigate and get through COVID. Then as we're coming out of COVID, we had to change how we were teaching, policies, procedures. So there was a lot of uproar and upheaval. And so we are really working diligently with our unions, our teachers, our community leaders, and parents and students to identify what specifically we can do to help increase our enrollment. One of the things I know that we've done coming out of COVID was focus on the social emotional well-being of our students. COVID really did a lot of damage to some of these kids. And so we helpfully have social emotional deans to help them as they go through and navigate their educational system.
Thank you, Dr. Bolton. So Dr. Bolton, this question will be for you as well. What are your priorities for the school district's budget, and what are some hurdles you expect to encounter?
Well, it's not lost upon me that Bremerton we have 59% of our students or students who identify as more than one color. So we have a very racially diverse school district. We have a very low income school district, and we have aging buildings. So one of the first things that we did as we were embarked upon hiring a new superintendent, one of the first things that we did was did a strategic, a long-range facility master plan where we reviewed every single one of our buildings, and then we compared it to what the educational learning was for our, how is it going to impact the learning of our students. And we identified that our buildings, while we did an excellent job in the upkeep of our buildings, we are aging out of those buildings within the next 5 years, especially the kindergarten classes. So we really need to address this issue, and education not fully funded with our legislature. So that's an issue that we have to address.
Thank you. Mr. Byrd, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yeah, if you would, I'd appreciate that.
Of course. What are your priorities for the school district's budget, and what are some of the hurdles you expect to encounter?
Well, I think the biggest hurdle that's going to come up is obviously our buildings. I've read the report, the long range, and it talks about, I believe, Armajar is a particular concern. They want to rebuild that one, and there's another elementary. Sorry, it escapes me at the moment. And I think the concern there is, how much is that project really needed? So that's a concern, and this isn't a little bit of money. I mean, you're talking about $150 million that we're asking to pull out of the community. And my answer isn't no, but I certainly want to see from my own side, from my own eyes, and I want to be convinced on behalf of the voters that these types of projects are really needed. And if they are, then I'll certainly sell it and tell everybody we just need to bite the bullet, and these are needed. And yeah, I'll go with that.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Byrd, this question will start with you. How have you, or how do you anticipate interacting with parents and responding to community feedback?
Well, ideally, they'll show up to the board meetings. I have to admit, sometimes I've been to several of these board meetings now, and I don't see a lot of parents except for during awards. And I'm hoping to communicate to parents that these board meetings can be open and that we should perhaps consider having a question and answer period directly with it instead of just giving them their 3 minutes. I think that's a real hindrance to a lot of people that, you can talk at the board, but you don't know if you're actually going to get a response. I take a lot of inspiration from the question times from the Canadian and British parliaments. And I think that'd be a great thing, for us to be that accountable to the voters. I think that would help spark things.
Thank you very much. And Dr. Bolton, the same question.
Well, do you repeat the question for me again, please?
Of course I will. Absolutely. With pleasure. How have you, or how do you anticipate interact with parents and responding to community feedback?
Sure, I'd be happy to answer that question. So first and foremost, school board meetings are business meetings. So there's not a lot of fluff in it. We come in, we look at policies, we approve budgets and so on. So it is not really the good place to have a back and forth dialogue. You have to follow Robert's rules. But we do have standards that we're required to uphold as a school board director. And one of the things is getting out into your community and talking to people. So, I go to different forums. Like one of the things I did was attend the first day of kindergarten at West Hills. And let me tell you, that was a phenomenal day, because not only did I get a chance to see kids going on their first day of school, but I got a chance to connect with the PTA and the parents that were dropping their kids off for the first time. You also have to attend certain events, and get out, go to, baseball games, softball games, but you can't do it from the board meeting. You got to get out into the community and connect with individuals. That's the number one way to do that as a successful board director.
Thank you, Dr. Bolton. This one is for you, and it's very closely, it goes hand in hand with the last one. So how have you interacted, or how do you anticipate interacting with students and teachers? Instead of just parents, how about students and teachers?
Two of the most important people in the schools, okay, students and teachers, yes. So first of all, students, one of the things that the board did, that we did collectively, we decided last year, we did not just want one student on the school board, we want two. And we also gave them a little bit of taste of what it's like to be a board member by allowing them to have a they could vote, but it's not really counting toward a vote. So we've been getting out and attending Bremerton High School. We had one of our board meetings at the high school where we actually had different groups in front of us. We work very closely with the union, have discussions with the union, but the students being out and about with the students and some of these things, the students, I tell you what, this is a different breed. I mean, I've taught, community college, but these kids in the high school and such, they're very smart. And I tell you, one of the number one things that they're concerned about, vaping in the school, that and transportation. Those are those two of the biggest issues that you find out when you get out and you talk to these individuals in their own space, not in mine.
All right, thank you, Dr. Bolton. Mr. Byrd, same question.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to be able to go to the school. It's a little weird for me to do it now. My kids have already graduated, so I don't have a lot of, as private citizen Lance, I don't really have a lot of reason to be there. But as Director Byrd, I would certainly love to go to the school and have interactions, take questions. Obviously, people are always welcome to email me, call me. My phone's listed on the website, and have that kind of interaction. So, I pride myself on certainly listening and having an open mind to what's on, what their concerns are.
Thank you very much, Mr. Byrd. Okay, so you both touched on this in one of the earlier questions, but I'd like to home in a little bit more on this. This will be Mr. Byrd will answer this question first. Since the COVID pandemic, homeschooling has increased by about 30% across the nation. What do you believe should be the Bremerton School District's relationship with and responsibility to homeschooling families in the district?
Well, there are certainly some things that the high school can provide, like gym and other community, communal type activities. It would be nice. I believe we already have a program that has teacher instruction that's available to parents. I know of some parents that have talked about that I've discussed that with, and they're very happy with that. So, yeah, I think currently what we're doing seems to be a lot of the people seem to be pretty happy with that. So, yeah, I think that we should have teacher involvement with homeschool if the parents want it. I mean, it is their choice, but yeah, I think that's a good place for schools to be, to provide that. I mean, after all, they pay taxes and they should benefit from some of that.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. Dr. Bolton, the same question.
You always want to meet students where they're at. So if they feel more comfortable being homeschooled and their parents want to do that, then we are absolutely going to support that endeavor, which is something that we already do. One of the greatest things about homeschooling as it's expanded over the years is that we have co-curricular activities that the students can actually come to the school and participate in. And so everything's available. We have a friend that has 2 kids, and she wanted to homeschool her pre-K kids. And so she went onto the website, she downloaded the curriculum, and when little Lachlan got to kindergarten, he was fully prepared. He was so prepared that when he saw another little kid in the corner crying, he looked over at Mommy and said, "Mommy, what's wrong with that little boy?" And so I said, "Well, he's just sad." And so, we just need to meet the family where they're at. If they want to feel more comfortable teaching at home, then we're always going to support that, because it's about the social and emotional well-being of all students, whether it be in Bremerton, Kitsap County, or the United States.
Thank you, Dr. Bolton. Okay, so that question touched on the pandemic, and obviously the pandemic is looming over everything that we're doing with education right now. So speaking of the pandemic, job security has been bouncing back since 2020, but it's still a concern for many members of the community. Do you believe that the Bremerton School Board has a role in promoting job growth in the district, and why or why not? This will go to Dr. Bolton first.
So first of all, we are the goal of the school board directors. We're about governance of the schools, right? And so the superintendent is in charge of running the school. But one of the things that we're getting ready to embark upon on November 1st is our strategic planning session. And I know that there's a couple of things that I would like to be focused on, maybe the apprenticeship program or different avenues, because we have a changing demographic with our K through 12, with our students, especially in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. Let's find different pathways for them. If they don't want to go to the military like I did, or go to the college, like Mr. Byrd did, or if they don't want to go into the shipyard, let's find a different pathway, maybe a pre-apprenticeship program, maybe a maritime academy. And so we need to be able to meet students where they're at, preparing students to get them ready for, as my parents would say, is a successful launch out of my house, is how my mom would say it. So that's really what our success was. We want to focus on making our students successful beyond 12th grade.
Thank you. Mr. Byrd, do you want me to repeat the question?
Yeah, I want to make sure I understand your question correctly.
Definitely. Job security has been bouncing back since 2020, but it's still a concern for many members of the community. Do you believe that the Bremerton School Board has a role in promoting job growth in the district, and why or why not?
Well, I don't think that, if I understand your question correctly, I don't think the school district should be in the business of make work, but as far as promoting other work, I mean, we obviously hire teachers and bus drivers and that sort of thing. But obviously, I don't think we would hire more than what our need is, just simply for the sake of hiring. But again, to prepare students for the workforce, obviously we've got to focus on academics and and get them job ready so that they can compete for what jobs there are.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, here's a controversial one. So we're going to start with Mr. Byrd. Bremerton was thrust into the national spotlight with the Supreme Court case Kennedy versus Bremerton School District, and the district lost that case. What do you believe is the appropriate role of a school board director in moving forward in terms of policy and public discourse?
I think the Supreme Court got that one right. I mean, that was a horrible and expensive lesson for Bremerton to learn about the First Amendment. From what I understand of Joe Kennedy, he had stopped two of the items that were objectionable because it looked like he was handing out leaflets or something like that to a captive audience. But when it came to his personal and private prayer a bit at the 50-yard line, yeah, I think that was an okay thing to do. When it comes to the separation of church and state, the school shouldn't be in the business of promoting a particular religion, but it shouldn't stop people from being able to, observe their own personal religious beliefs and be able to pray.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. Dr. Bolton, the same question.
Could you repeat that question for me again, please?
Absolutely. Bremerton was thrust into the national spotlight with the Supreme Court case Kennedy versus Bremerton School District, and the district lost that case. What do you believe is the appropriate role of a school board director in moving forward in terms of policy and public discourse?
Well, first of all, understand that we review all policies and the policies that are set forth by the legislature. So if it's a mask mandate that comes down from the governor, from the legislature, we have to follow that law, right? And so our constituents require us to do that. I don't get into the politics of what happened with the court case. All we could do is put forth policies and procedures set forth by the guidelines from our administration, which we have done that. And so when it comes to public discourse, I mean, I'm not really sure what the direction or the question really is, but honestly, if it's all about the kids for me. So we want to make sure that we have a good environment for the children. And so I don't get into the politics behind that because I'm not a politician. I'm just an ordinary citizen who happens to be a school board director.
Thank you. Okay, this is one of the ones from the high school civics class. So as gun violence, and this is for Karen, I'm sorry, Dr. Bolton, excuse me. As gun violence and other safety issues increase in schools across the nation, how would you as a school board member advocate for the safety of our students?
Well, we are all about the school board director. So I just want to be clear. It's not Dr. Bolton, Director Bolton. It's collaboratively together as a school board. We have those discussions and we set forth governance, and then we put that forth part of our goals for school safety. And so this is one of the things that's coming up for our long range for our planning session that we're having November 1st. Guns in the school is an issue. Safe schools, we've taken a lot of measures to make sure that our schools are properly safer than they have been in years. Is there more things that we could do? Absolutely. There's always going to be a changing landscape when it comes to some of these issues. So trying to stay ahead of it can be challenging. But the best thing that we can do as a school board collaboratively is work together but make informed decisions. So we have forums to have individuals come in and talk to us, and we do our research before we put forth any policy, hands down.
Thank you, Dr. Bolton. Mr. Byrd, Same question?
Yeah, I think there's two issues here. There's one of internal threats and one of external threats. And for internal, I would certainly hope that we would create a safe enough place where students wouldn't feel like they needed to bring a gun, or they would never get into a position where they have that rage to want to go and shoot up the school. And then you have an external threats where you get some nutball who decides he wants to get his name in the paper or whatever. In either case, you need an armed presence at the schools. And I would advocate for a resource officer, law enforcement, that sort of thing. If the law allowed, and I'll do more research on this, I'd even consider allowing teachers if they want to do it. Nothing forced, but if they wanted it. There have been many teachers who put their lives, between themselves and their students to protect it. And if they felt and they had the right training, I would even advocate for that.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. This next question will go to you. Our country is grappling with what books, materials, and ideas should exist in our classrooms. If elected, what role do you believe you, as a school board director, should play in deciding what course content and curriculum materials should be allowed in the schools? Are there specific ideas that you would advocate for or against?
Okay. The RCW has called out that if a parent complains about particular material that's in the library, we are to review it. And I take that duty very seriously. I don't believe we should have sexualized material in our libraries or in our curriculum. In other words, where it talks about sexual acts and possibly even different lifestyles. I just don't. I think that is the discussion that belongs between students and the parents, not between the student and the school. If you're talking about basic biology, okay, I'm pretty open to that one. But whenever you're talking about more touchy subjects that possibly conflict with those of parents, no, I don't agree with having any of that type of material or subject taught in our schools.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. And then Dr. Bolton, that'll be the same question for you.
One more time for the question.
Of course. Yeah.
Busy listening.
No problem. It's a long one. Our country is grappling with what books, materials, and ideas should exist in classrooms. If elected, what role do you believe you, as a school board director, should play in deciding what course content and curriculum materials should be allowed in the schools? Are there specific ideas that you would advocate for or against?
So a couple of things. I'm an educator. I taught in a classroom for years, and a couple of things. One, I don't have time to go get weapons training to be in a classroom. So I would never advocate for that. Unless the teachers union wanted it, then we can have that discussion. Two, I'm a curriculum development specialist in my field of organizational leadership. I can review curriculum, write curriculum, change curriculum, but it took me years to become a subject matter expert in that. I, myself, or anyone else on our school board, and probably any other school board that I know in Washington State, are not qualified to go into someone's class and say, you shouldn't be teaching that curriculum. However, I'm going to support the teachers and the work that they're doing, because they're doing amazing work. Any parent, and you can go to my website, KarenBolton.com, any parent, and I had the parental rights there, came out from Center Wellness. Any parent can opt out of the curriculum if they don't approve of it. Any parent. It's just that simple.
Thank you, Dr. Bolton. And then next question will be for you. On July 3rd, the Bremerton School District website announced that a significant concern for us right now is a substitute teachers shortage. What steps would you, as a school board member, take to address this significant concern?
Well, one of the things that we first started trying to do a few years ago pre-COVID was do the Grow Your Own, where we take students and encourage them to become teachers and to come back into the district. We also need to look at, back in the day, we had troops of teachers and military people were coming out, may not have all the education, but maybe we can help them get the education to come back to become substitute teachers or maybe full-time teachers. There's a lot of things that we can do to look at as a school board, remember, it's not just me, it's always as a school board that we can have that discussion on what we need to do to get more substitute teachers. And personally, it is an issue, but I'm telling you right now, the biggest issue I have is that we need bus drivers. And so I'm very close to getting my license to maybe come out and help the school district to get more bus drivers. But, there's a lot of things we could do, and I would love to have an open forum within Bremerton to see what we could do to get more people qualified to be substitute teachers.
Thank you, Dr. Bolton. Mr. Byrd, that's the same question to you. What steps would you take as a school board member to address the substitute teacher shortage?
Well, I heard the interview when this question was posed to our superintendent, and it was an answer a lot like what Karen gave, and I'd like to think that I could add something more to this, but we run into the same issue in the tech industry, trying to find the best talent, the most competent talent. You got to place the ads, and you just got to scan through the resumes and then sell. Once you find somebody who you think is qualified, you have to sell them on the job and tell them the benefits of being in Bremerton and why it's a good place to work, and the team that's put together. So in a lot of ways, it's a sales job to convince these people that, hey, we're a good place, you'll like it here, and come over here and please spend your time with us. So,
okay, thank you very much, Mr. Byrd. All right, so this next question, we'll start with Mr. Byrd. October, the month we're in right now, is Disability Awareness Month. What is the school district currently doing to support students with disabilities, and how would you, as a school board member, facilitate that support?
Honestly, I don't know. I have not had a chance to see all of the buildings. As a private citizen, it'd be a little weird for me to go building to building and check out their ADA situation. But that's certainly something I'd be willing to be more than happy to do as a director and see what the situation is. I mean, if there's a kid that's disabled and not able to access the building in a reasonable fashion, then yeah, of course we need to do something about that.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Bolton, same question.
So one of the things that we've done, if you notice, around like Kitsap Lake Elementary and this whole safe routes to school thing, that's part of accessibility. And so, like at Kitsap Lake Elementary, you notice that the sidewalks are larger. You have more crossings with the thing so that kids can get across the street. So that was in partnership with the city council and the mayor's office. And so we've been partnering with other groups and individuals to not only look at what we're doing inside the school when it comes to accessibility but outside the school, because it's not just about in the classroom. Because we can give students computers, we can have ESL interpreters within the school, but we need to start looking outward on what we could do. And one of the things that we have to do is look at how does it affect the learning of our students? Because if you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, meeting those safety needs, and then there's a lot of physiological safety needs, and then once you can meet those needs, they can feel like they belong, and then their self-esteem goes up. So it's the one thing that we're always focused on within the Bremerton School District.
Okay. Next question, and this will be for Dr. Bolton first. What is your history with racial justice and treaty rights, and how would you address these issues as a school board member?
Well, I have no experience with treaty rights, but I do have a lot of work with, what did you call it? What did you say was justice?
Racial justice.
Social justice work?
I said
racial justice. So, okay, so a lot of my work has always been around diversity, equity, inclusion. And I know I had this discussion with Mr. Byrd before about this, and really about diversity, equity, inclusion is want to make sure that people feel like they belong. One of the number one things that are killing our kids nowadays, they're committing suicide because they don't feel like they belong. And the last thing I ever want is for an adult to even make a statement or a comment to a student within our district to make them feel like they don't belong. We will do everything we can to make sure every kid belongs, because they deserve us to do that. So if I need to go back to do some work, and let me tell you, I'm old school. So I was born in the 1900s, right? So I had to go back and understand, because I wasn't even clear on that. But the treaty rights, things like that, I don't have any familiarity with that, but I love to learn more about it. As an educator, I love to learn. So I think maybe that might be something that we have to discuss as a board. Thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Mr. Byrd, do you want me to repeat the question?
Yeah, yes, please.
Of course. What is your history with racial justice and treaty rights, and how would you address these issues as a school board member?
My history. So first, like Dr. Bolton, I'm not familiar with the treaty rights and that issue, so that I have to look into that as well. Social justice. I work with a pretty diverse group of people where I'm employed, literally from all around the world, and we're all just people. Pretty basic. I would hope that all students would feel welcome, would feel safe. I think where some of the talk gets is, do we have to accept everything, or is it okay just to tolerate? And I don't mean tolerate in a negative fashion, but I don't have to agree with different lifestyles. But all students should feel safe and are entitled to a quality education.
Thank you very much, Mr. Byrd. Okay, this is our penultimate question before we get to our closing statements. So we'll start with Mr. Byrd. What is your view on standardized testing, and how do you think it should be used to measure student progress?
Well, if you don't test, you don't know where you're at. If you don't have metrics, you don't know how you're doing. If you can't measure it, what have you done? There's no accountability. So I do believe in standardized testing. There should be, I look at the Smarter Balance tests that they're at the OSPI site, and it's disappointing. I'll get more into that in the closing statements. You have to. Yeah, I hope that would be obvious.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Bolton, the same question. What is your view on standardized testing, and how do you think it should be used to measure student progress?
So I guess I don't think that testing is a way to measure someone's progress. I'm a lousy test taker. And matter of fact, I have fear of tests, but I don't want to put that phobia on other people. But there's other ways. And so but we have to, and I know, Mr. Byrd's going to bring this up about our dismal numbers. I'm not happy with those numbers either. And so one of the things that we're going to be laser focused on is how do we get our standards and test scores up. But before we can do that, we have to be in a room with subject matter experts, with the superintendent, with parents, with students, with local community leaders, and see what we can do to raise the test scores up. We can't just look at data and just say compare data to our neighboring school district or a school district in Lake Washington, because data, just for the sake of saying data, means nothing until we know exactly what we're looking at. So I'm not necessarily, sold on it, but then as a school board director, like I said, we have to have those discussions. And so I'm amenable to it, but I just need to do more research and know more about it.
Thank you very much. Okay, for our final question, this is related to one of the ones, and it's a little bit of a dense one, so bear with me here. We're going to start with Dr. Bolton. So given that school funding in the state of Washington is dependent upon property taxes, economic stability, and good-paying jobs that are essential to properly funding the Bremerton schools, what can the school district and you as a school board member do to contribute to a healthy economy and adequate school funding?
Well, this is a tricky question, right? Because first we have to get on our legislatures to fully fund education. I cannot stress that enough. We're going to do the best we can, but Kitsap Bremerton specifically, we don't have, we're a lower income district. And so what we have to really look at is, we've been doing a good job piecemealing, trying to do, again, get funding, making sure our kids are eating, pulling these other, ESSER funds are going away. And so, it's hard for me to say what we can do, but the number one thing we can do is get our legislatures in that room when we have that discussion and say this is, and if we come out of this, our meeting, which hopefully we will be laser focused on what we could do about this. But honestly, until we're fully funded education out of our legislature, we're going to do everything we can.
Thank you, Dr. Bolton. Mr. Byrd, would you like me to repeat that question?
Yeah, let's go over that one again.
All right, so
it was dense, wasn't it?
The school funding in the state of Washington is dependent on property taxes, economic stability, and good paying jobs. And that's essential to properly funding the Bremerton schools. So what can the school district and you as a school board member do, if anything, to contribute to a healthy economy and adequate school funding?
Well, obviously, we're going to press the state legislature for as much money as they're willing to give us. We do have a high rate. I think it's 70% of our students are low income. So that certainly presents some challenges. We do spend on average more per pupil than I know the Central Kitsap and the Lake Washington School District. So I think the other issue there is we need to be frugal with what we do have and figure out, how to make better use of that money to get our kids educated. But obviously, we're going to take advantage of any kind of federal funding that we can get, any kind of grants. And I wouldn't be above working the phones to, cajole others to certainly help out in the effort.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Byrd. So that brings us to our closing statements. So Candy, if you would switch that timer to 90 seconds instead of 60. We are going to give each candidate a chance to give a closing statement. They'll have 90 seconds each. And because Mr. Byrd was the person to respond second to that last question, we're going to start with him. So Mr. Byrd, when you're ready, will you please give us your 90-second closing statement?
Well, the voters have a choice between two high school dropouts to pick from. Like Karen, I mean, Dr. Bolton went to community college where I felt like I got my real education. I am a product of Seattle Public Schools, and I can't say that is much to be proud of. My real education came from North Seattle Community College, and boy, am I grateful. For our district, I cannot stress enough how much I want to see our English scores go up. Everything that I do for a living now revolves around writing. It's emails, it's documents, it's proposals, it's arguments, it's everything. Above all, as much as I am in the tech industry and as many tech skills as I may have, it is my ability to write that has propelled me forward. So that is a huge concern that I have for our students at Bremerton. It's going to be English, English, English. And then the second one obviously is math. And our scores aren't so well there either. So the question is, how are we going to teach? Well, I'm going to have to look into that. But the first thing that we have to do is at least admit that we have a problem. And I know there are other things I'm going to wish I would have said, but unfortunately, they just don't come to mind at the moment. So on to you, Dr. Bolton.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. And then Dr. Bolton, you have 90 seconds to give a closing statement.
Well, I tell you, one of the best things about the Bremerton School District, right, is we learn to adapt and we get after it. We came into COVID and I was new on the board, stressed out. Myself and Director Hurley were like, what do we get into? Came out of COVID, then all of a sudden we're fighting, trying to get students back in, trying to get to a new norm. Then all of a sudden we lost a superintendent, interim superintendent, but now we are on the right track. We went ahead and did our long-range master facilities plan, which was community input on what we need to do. We hired a phenomenal transformational class of 98 Bremerton High School graduate, Go Knights. And then now, November 1st, we have community leaders and other individuals within our community to do our long-range, can't remember, I'm getting tired, right? So we get embarked upon to doing that work. And one of the things that Mr. Byrd pointed out is our test scores are not where they need to be. We understand that, but like I said, you can't just look at data and just go, well, this is a problem. We need to find out, are these kids from low income schools? Are they from marginalized house? Are they been marginalized? Are they unhoused? And so we have to look at all these different factors and then figure out, and then we can address the problem. But I know that, we are Bremerton strong, no matter what. We're going to be brave, be bold, be Bremerton. And I hope for your vote because, I'm not just going to fight for you, but I'm going to fight for our kids because they deserve it.
Thank you, Dr. Bolton, and thank you, Mr. Byrd. Thanks to both of you candidates for your time, and thank you for all of the voters who attended, and for those of you who will be seeing this on future YouTube. So hopefully this forum has given you the information required to choose a candidate. If you are registered to vote in the Bremerton School District, you should receive your ballots for the November 7th general election by this Friday or near this Friday, October 20th. You will have 18 days to return your ballot, But as a member of the League of Women Voters, I strongly recommend that you return it as soon as possible, just so that if anything can go wrong, it will go wrong. So just return it as soon as possible. You can return it by mail or at one of the ballot boxes that are listed at kitsapgov.com. That's kitsapgov.com. Also, the Marvin William Recreation Center, which is near downtown Bremerton, it's going to be open for on-site registration and voting from the 5th to the 7th of November. So that means if you know any civic-minded procrastinators, then tell them that they can go on-site even on the day of the election to register to vote and vote on the same day. This forum and all of the League's forums for county-wide elections are recorded, and links to the videos will soon be on our website at www.lwv-kitsap.org. And then we will also have them available on YouTube. BCAT, which is Bremerton Kitsap Access Television, may also broadcast the forums on the Comcast Channel 12 and Wave Broadband Channel 3. So check your local listings for the upcoming schedule. And please, please encourage others to learn about the candidates by viewing this, other League forums, and especially encourage them to vote. Candidates, Mr. Byrd, Dr. Bolton, you have Kitsap County's League of Women Voters. Thanks for participating in this forum this evening and for offering your expertise to the Bremerton School District. So thank you so much to you and our audience and community members for participating in representative democracy by listening and providing thoughtful questions. Good night, and I'm going to say it one more time, don't forget to vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye, Karen.